Good morning. Which items would you like to speak to?
All items and general public comment, please.
Okay, so you have 3 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general. Please begin with the items. Go ahead.
Great. So a lot of these items are REAP items, Rent Escrow Account Program. I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience today know what that means because we have an abundance of landlords who came to speak today. But for those listening who don't know, the Rent Escrow Account Program exists when a landlord fails to meet requirements for the habitability of a unit they are leasing. And when this happens, if the city finds that they are in fact in violation, then the tenant, rather than not being responsible for an amount of rent relative to the issue they're dealing with, they have to put that money in an account that can't be touched until abatement requirements are met. Man, and I tell you, if anyone hates to work, it's fucking landlords. I mean, no one wants to work these days, right? Isn't that what people have said for the past few years? Nobody wants to work, and I agree, because my landlord, he just hates dealing with chipping paint. He doesn't want to fix the plumbing. He wants to let things leak and then hike the price we pay on our washer and dryer that we have to pay to use, citing water costs when he's not fixing any of the many, many leaks in the building. I also have a rodent problem. That's pretty disgusting. But rather than the tenants getting a break because they're dealing with uninhabitable conditions, they still have to pay the full amount of rent. It just goes into account that the lazy bastard landlord can't touch until they've met abatement requirements. And I think that's kind of bullshit because that's not how the world works for the rest of us. Let me talk about item 15. You'll probably hear a lot of people today claiming to be housing providers, but then for some reason to them providing housing means having the right to kick their tenants out on the street. If anyone is providing housing, it's the worker that's sending all their paycheck to someone who owns a bunch of homes that they don't live in. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to all these people holding signs that say we provide housing. Actually, your tenant is providing you with the extra homes that you just gain passive income from because you are so fucking lazy and you just want to keep your ass on the couch and not work. And I get that. I don't like to work either. Who does? That's why it's called work. It's not called vacation. Vacation is fun. That's what everyone wants to do. So I just hope this council will please do everything they can to protect tenants. We already are in a crisis level with regard to the unhoused resident population, and keeping people housed is the best prevention to increasing the unhoused resident population. I know that's important to you, Nithya. General comment? Recently, a rep from CD4 said that Nithya went on record in support of the option to give comment on the phone, so someone filed a PRA. Yep, then after that person followed up, again, they finally responded in an email saying, after searching in a reasonable way, you have no documents that meet that criteria. You need to get your story straight, because your office keeps lying. We're telling you, we are never, ever, ever gonna drop this issue. We are never, ever, ever gonna stop asking you to reinstate the option for remote commenting. We are never, ever, ever gonna drop this issue. I know there's a lot of people here today, but there's thousands to millions of more people who would love to give comment if you would just reinstate the option for telephone comment. Any of you could stand up and call a point of order and ask your president to do that. Shout out Smoke and Scan, and thank you all for your attention.
Before our next speaker, I'm going to call up a few other names. Can we get Audit LA, Adam Smith, Albert, Bob Garfield, Candice, Carla Martinez? Thank you.
Calling the troublemakers first today.
So you have 3 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general public comment.
Thank you, bar criminal. So let's see here. And I talk on item 1 today, asshole. Let's see. So we have Isabel Gerardo, known as Kevin with a skirt, still imposing a $2,000 fucking lien. They just burnt the city down, lady. Can't you waive the goddamn lien? What are you going to do? You're not going to take the money in retirement. Waive the goddamn fucking lien. Don't do what Kevin did. I tried to tell Kevin to be good. I also told Mr. Weezer to stop taking that Chinese money, but they just don't listen to me. So CD number 1, we have Hamburger Hernandez on number 8. Hamburger is now allowed the landlord to keep all his money. Let's give her a hand. Well done. Yes, that's right. So she's a Democrat socialist, huh? If that's the case, I'm RFK Jr. He talks like me. Now we get number 9. Yes, just for everybody, I'm going to do an RFK Jr. imitation. Communication from the Los Angeles Housing Department resolution. Jeez, that was great. Let's give you a hand for that. Yeah. Yes. So we say, fuck Katie Yaroslavsky, KKK. Now we get number 10. Let's see here. CD 13. Why, that's that sellout, Hugo Soto Stalin, giving the money back to the landlord. And then Marchese. But we're going to leave you alone, Marchese, because you called me. You were so nice to me today. I'll support number 11. Wow. Yes, that's right. You can blackmail even me, people. Now we have number 12, KKK Katie Yaroslavsky. Another rent escrow exoneration. Well done. And that's why we're wearing the Santa hat today. We're giving things to landlords today, everybody. Then we have the removal task force. Yes, that's right. We're going to dig up all of the destructive chemicals and dangerous things and dig it up out of Pacific Palisades and take it far away in trucks to those Latino neighborhoods and bury it into the ground. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, the groundwater's not going to get contaminated, right, Adrian Buckethead Nazarian? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to punish Latino workers and Latino residents in poor neighborhoods so you can have Pacific Palisades decriminalized from all of that waste? Fuck you on number 13. And now for the general comment. As you know, KFI this morning talked about our police department, and Nithya Ramen Noodle wants to cut the LAPD's fucking salary increase. Let's give Nithya a hand, everybody. Yeah. That's right. Nithya Ramen Noodle. She's here to the left and then to the right and then to the left. Little Miss Flip Flop over there. So when you see her, give her a shout out. She loves it when you do this. Noodle, 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 noodle. That's right. She likes that. And then, of course, we have everybody here. Look, they don't pay attention to you. See that? You can say anything up here and nobody pays attention except that censor asshole attorney up there. Yes, that's right. Let's try it. Go Eagles. No, that didn't work. Let's see here. Fuck Kansas City. No,
right.
That didn't work.
You know the rules, and you're clearly
Yes.
trying to test the boundaries. You can only
Yes.
speak to things that are within
Oh.
the subject matter jurisdiction of the city, and your
Okay,
time has expired. So I see a lot of Mr. Spindler. Please vacate the podium so we can move on to the next speakers. Okay.
I'm a landlord, and I'm definitely not lazy. Most of my life, I worked about 80 hours a
Speaker,
week.
before you begin, just one quick thing. Don't worry, we're not going to start your time. So I see a lot of shocked and confused faces. For those of you who are new here, that is Mr. Spindler. He is one of our resident gadflies. We have to allow them to speak. The speakers are selected at random. So again, it does not reflect the views of this council or this city. It is their First Amendment right to be able to provide public comment. We appreciate your patience, and believe it or not, that was relatively tame for him. So, I'm sorry, which items would you like to speak to, Speaker?
General comments and item 15.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for the item and 1 minute for general public comment. Please begin with the item. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, my name is Bob. I want to thank you guys. I've been a landlord for over 50 years, and I've definitely not been lazy. Most of my life, I've worked like 70, 80 hours a week, trying to do a great job for all of our tenants, meeting all of their needs. But it gets harder and harder. You know, I built a lot of buildings in the city. And a lot of my friends who built here no longer do, and nor do I. And as rules get tougher and tougher, it gets more and more likely that you'll see new construction from people because it's too hard of a city. You know, during COVID, it was 4.5 to 5 years before I started rent increases for a lot of my tenants. Now you're talking another rent freeze. We had 4% increase. Well, the cost increase. Well, our profits go down and down, and we still do our best to provide wonderful service for our tenants. But you're just going to lose builders like me who will no longer build the city because they can go somewhere else close by and have a better situation. So I just think as a whole, all things, you have to consider that landlords can't be, lose all their profit. They have to make enough to be able to stay in the housing and want to be here to compete with other communities. And you're starting to not allow that. Thank you.
My name's Adam Smith from the LA Community Action Network's Human and Civil Rights Committee, and I live in Council District 11. I urge the council to vote yes on item 15 as written. The wildfires have devastated our communities, compounding a housing crisis that has been expanding for decades due to housing affordability, housing availability, poverty, and this city's response to those. Tenants who are already facing unaffordable rent and persistent rent burden are now more vulnerable than ever to displacement. Thousands of people have lost their homes, their neighborhoods, and their jobs. Tens of thousands more, already living on the street or in other precarious situations, face death, disease, and displacement daily. Price gouging has been out of control as a result of these fires, worsening our affordability crisis and making the ongoing crisis of houselessness even worse. According to a recent report by the Rent Brigade, rent gouging has surged by over 5,000% from January 7th to the 18th. Landlords and agents are illegally overcharging renters by $7.7 million per month. General public comment?
Yes, sorry, we were setting your time. Can you start his time from the top? Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Great. Amounting to $92.4 million annually above the legal limit. Like I said, I live in CD11, and thankfully I did not have to evacuate. My kids' teachers lost their homes, friends have lost their homes, and it's all around terrible, and it's compounding a crisis that has been ongoing for decades. LA City must pause evictions and rent increases to help people struggling to pay rent after losing their income and prevent further displacement and homelessness caused by the fires, as we contend with a houseless crisis that bears the brunt of criminalization and violence. All tenants are trying to recover from these wildfires, both houseless and housed, and we ask Council today to urgently vote yes on item 15.
For the general public comment, I'm here to send an apology to our council member that I listened to the advice to a smoking scan. If I come to this country, I need to have my paperwork ready. So therefore, I did. But however, the council member continued to attacking me, continued to refusing services to me. When I was legal, when I was illegal, the council member Harry Stousen denied me city services. Right now, when I was legal, the city council member, President Harry Stousen, continued to deny me services. I really wish one day, council member, we can be like Martin Luther King. Can we just get along? I really wish our council member do not judge me based on my skin color, but judge me based on the content of my character. Instead of DEI, let's do some DIE. Instead of DEI, let's do some meritocracy. Instead of ignoring people, let's try to help people, especially legalized criminal.
One and one. Go ahead.
While the fires were horrible, putting this number 15 in at this point in time after we've just come out of a pandemic is devastating to the housing community. Yes, prices have gone up, but so has insurance and utilities and everything else that we have to pay. It would be wonderful if we could create a fund for the people that are directly affected and not just do a blanket hold on the entire community. Thank you.
Put on your red dress, Traci.
Which items would you,
Tell
good morning,
us
which
who
items would you like to
you're
speak
all
to?
About. Lydia Ponce, item 15 and 1.
So you have 1 minute so you have 2 minutes for the items. That's item 15 and item number 1.
Yes,
Go ahead.
thank you. Can you start my time over? Thank you. It's amazing how we're given a minute per agenda item, no matter where we come from in the greater part of Los Angeles. I came from Venice, and it's interesting how we call this public engagement when y'all aren't listening.
Speaker, you're welcome to speak to this during general public comment if you'd like, but
This
please
is
stick.
general public comment.
Okay.
And the fact that you just took away 3 of my seconds. What it is here is we have a failure to communicate, because I think when you're doing press conferences, you too should be allowed 1 minute per item, 1 minute per topic. So that way we can go, time is up. Because y'all are calling this public engagement and you're not listening to any of us. No one. You don't listen to any of us. But now you're listening. Because what I'm saying is that we have to be better relatives. These fires and the earthquake yet to happen should be making us all humble in our hearts, to have humility, to know who we are and what we're about. None of you can touch the mutual aid that's being offered and all over Los Angeles. You can't duplicate it because it comes from the heart. You show up and send people to help, but they don't even know how to merge and yield. Not all of you, some of you. Because the better part of the mutual aid is going to be here to stay after the feeble and the ones that want to take selfies to gift people the essential things that they need. We know the fake mutual aid exists. We know them. They're about themselves. We've been doing it since before COVID. Item 15. How dare anybody try to align and hip check the housing, the affordable housing and the moderate housing that's going to be made available for the people who go and take care of the children up in the Palisades and the Brentwood and all the other areas that burn, minus Eaton, all working hard, working people. Have any of the fire victims called their employees to check on how they're doing, how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to pay their cell phone, if they have any money to eat? A lot of people lost their jobs, and that's why we need to pass number 15. You need to vote yes. It's for the working people who are trying to make ends meet before the fires. Those fires happened because the same people who are victims of the fires did not want the shelters to open during the atmospheric river. They did not want the shelters there to house unhoused people. They did not want the poor people to take shelter from the hurricane that happened. That's the truth, and I speak from my heart. Did you listen to me? Did you hear me? Do the right thing. Vote yes on number 15.
Item 15, vote no, please.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for the item. Go ahead.
My name is Dexter McClendon. I'm from the inner city of Los Angeles. I've been in Los Angeles a numerous amount of years, and I built a few amount of properties that now I have rental properties. And I've always
Can you
gave
pause
back
this
to
time
the
for
city.
just a second? Speaker, can you lift the mic up just a little bit so we can, it moves. Yep, perfect. Thank you. Go ahead. Continue.
I've always gave back to the city, and fortunately I was able to get a few rental properties and help with the homeless such crisis. A few years ago, I've housed affordable housing for income, but I'm on the verge of losing my properties. The reason I'm on the verge of losing my properties because of COVID, the increase we didn't have for a numerous amount of years, and finally we got an increase. But everything has increased on my taxes, insurance, registration, apartment registrations, property taxes, energy, and even DWP. So it's very, very hard for me to maintain the properties with the increases. So the 4% increase that we are getting is really not enough. I'm still on the verge of losing my properties. So I understand about the fire, and I'm from the inner city. So the fire in the inner city is not, I'm from District 8. And that's a little bit different from Palisades and Santa Monica. Those people from those parts are moving there, but in the inner city, it's hard for me to maintain my properties. I only can continue with a small amount of increase. I don't have a lot of properties, but I'm on the verge of losing them. So please understand, everybody in here doesn't, is not, after the tenants to make money. We're here to help the people, to house people, and help people and their families. Thank you so much.
I hope every single council is listening to what I'm going to say. It's very important. It's an urgency that we put a pause on rental increases. First of all, we go through a lot of harassment from our landlords. We go through having nothing fixed in our apartments, yet they want an increase on the rents every single year. For years, we have been paying the increases year after year. And I think this is a matter of just having a heart and listen to your constituents. We are going through hell right now. There's a lot of price gouging, there's a lot of abuse, and we need to pay attention to our voices. It is very important. It's urgent. I'm on the street, but I went through hell with my landlord, with my landlady. So it is very important. People are suffering right now. They're not going to be able.
Public comment.
They're going to be able to pay the rent because they're not making enough money right now, and also they have to decide whether they pay the rent or whether they eat or whether they pay their medications. So one thing has to accommodate to the other. It is necessary, it is an emergency, and I hope Mr. Council Dawson could listen to the tenants on 39th Street and also the tenants in Dorset Village. And we have been trying to see you and have a meeting with you. You have not listened to us, or at least we haven't heard back. So please, can you make a compromise with us and say, yes, I will? I guess not. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
My name is Danny, and I co-manage a family-owned property management company. First off, I'd like to thank City Council for the recent amendment striking out the rent freeze from item 15. Despite that, I am strongly against item 15. When the previous multi-year eviction moratorium was put in place, housing providers were told not to worry for a variety of reasons. We were told not all of our tenants would avail themselves of these protections, only those affected. But we manage buildings wherein some 40% of our tenants evoked these protections and didn't pay some of them for the duration. We were told that rent wasn't being waived, it was just being deferred. But you can't say that somebody needs 12 months of full rental relief and that same person will suddenly be able to pay $30,000 of debt all at once in a lump sum next year. It's dishonest, and we know it didn't happen. We were told that rent relief programs would pay the debt of our tenants and that we wouldn't be left holding the bag. But that relief largely never came. As this council is aware, rent relief efforts paid a fraction of the total debt that housing providers accrued and is no longer able to be collected. My company alone was forced to endure a city-mandated loss of about $2 million. My company used to build housing in Los Angeles, and we have stopped out of fear. We won't buy or build here. For the last year, as an LA native, I've been defending the city, saying that the previous protections were a necessary and unique one-off. But if this item passes, I'm wrong. If it passes, there's no foreseeable event or emergency which can or will not be used to punish local housing providers and turn them into the subsidy of political convenience. I'll be wrong, and LA will have proven not to be a safe place to build housing. Lastly, I just want to ask, if you're here for item 15, if you're a housing provider, if you could just maybe rise to your feet for a moment and show how important and scary this is to all of us and show how many of us have come here to speak on this issue. This is terrifying for us, and if it creates a pattern, 2 for 2, I can't justify and argue that this remains a safe place to run housing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll speak on item 15 and general comment, please.
Good morning. You have 2 minutes. You have 1 minute for the item and 1 minute for general. So
Thank you.
Please begin with the items. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am a housing provider. I've been to the devastation in Eaton Canyon, and I've brought people into my home in orders that they have been housed. Item 15, as earlier proposed, is clearly a maneuver to continue to push a destructive political agenda using the devastation of the wildfires as an excuse. It appears, ladies and gentlemen, that some of you are unaware that this body's leadership position is tenuous. You have lost your moral authority, all your policies have failed, and you've squandered our money. It's over, ladies and gentlemen. Tinseltown is destroyed, and the curtain is pulled back from Oz. We all see the incompetence, mismanagement, and negligence of your policies that has turned our beautiful city into hell and impoverished its residents. Gavin Newsom has been served that he is being recalled. Mayor Bass is in the process. Today, members of this body are attempting to double down and burden housing providers still reeling from the last failed totalitarian ruling. Radical utopian ideology is not good basic governance. Destruction is the basis for this ideology. It is the housing industry that can save the city, and once again, some of you are attempting to destroy it rather than build. Your vote today will determine your future, and the outcome of the elections in the next 17 months. Item 15, the amendment on the rate freeze is acceptable, but the eviction moratorium is not. Vote no on the eviction moratorium. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Edna Monroy, and I'm with SAGE and the Keep LA House Coalition. First and foremost, I want to thank the council members for doing what needs to get done today. I also want to uplift the fact that there's over 100 people waiting outside. Most of them are tenants. It's cold, and we know who is out here taking up most of the spots, right? We're hearing from landlords, but we're not hearing from tenants, who are the ones that are being directly impacted, are getting evicted and lost their jobs. Landlords need to get jobs. That's a reality, and stop depending on tenants. I'm here to speak on the fact of the matter that the LARSO formula is still not updated. This allows these greedy landlords to keep taking advantage of already rent-burdened tenants that need to take out loans, figure out what to do to be able to cover rent instead of providing for their families. These are tenants that have lost their jobs due to the fires, and a lot of us are impacted due to the toxic air. That's going to be studied down the road, right? When a lot of us are going to be dealing with cancer due to the fires. Now, why can't we do the right thing and pass an eviction moratorium, a real one with teeth, so no more tenants like myself that actually got evicted from Council District 10 and now have been displaced and are living in Council District 9 don't go through the same thing. We need to do what's right. We need to update the LARSO formula. We need to listen to directly impacted people. And we also need to pass an actual and real eviction moratorium so these landlords don't keep taking advantage, keep price gouging like my landlord who is flipping a LARSO property to allegedly move in when we know that she's not going to move in into a LARSO unit. They keep using the law and abusing the law, playing tricks, and nothing gets done. Do what's right. Thank you.
Good morning, Council President Harris Dawson and members of the Council. My name is Rob Notoff. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, where we proudly represent over 800,000 union members throughout the county, including our brave first responders. Our construction workers are going to lead the rebuild effort, and our city workers. And within the labor, and we're here to speak in favor of item 15. And within the labor family, we've had over 5,000 union members who have been impacted by these fires, be it loss of their place of employment, loss of food, or their inability to pay utility bills due to having to evacuate their homes and or their place of employment. 1,000 of our members have lost everything, including their home. And these numbers only continue to rise as we establish more and more contact and assess the damage that's truly been done within the labor family. These members who are trying to piece back together their lives are now at the mercy of the housing market, and unfortunately, in times like these, we see the best in people and we see the worst. We've seen Angelenos band together to enact unprecedented mutual aid efforts, and we've seen others take advantage of this moment through price gouging and other unscrupulous practices.
General public comment?
Item 15 helps to ensure that our members who lost everything, including the housekeepers, nannies, gardeners, and workers who lost their place of employment like our grocery workers, our teachers, and others, have a fighting chance at finding a place to rest their heads and house their families. In closing, there are 3 basic needs for survival, just to remind this council: food, water, and shelter. And item 15 helps to ensure shelter for all, and that's why we're in strong favor of moving this today. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, my name is Jorge. I'm a landlord. and I'm going to share a different perspective on the homelessness crisis and everything else in the city. Real quickly, I came to this country when I was 12, son of a single mother, study, work. East LA. From East LA, directly I went to an Ivy League school. My mother earned $1.45 an hour. With that, we pay rent, we pay food, we paid our clothing, and I went to school. All of that without using the government's money. I went to an Ivy League school, I went to professional school, and since then I started saving and buying property. No one gave me the money to buy property. I earned it myself. And ever since then, I've been buying property in LA. Now, I don't get it how people talk about millions. 4% increase, that's $40 and $1,000 rent. What are they talking about millions? 40% is nothing. 4% is
General
nothing.
public comment.
The homelessness crisis is a crisis created by the city, state, and federal government because you don't let people learn how to live. You don't let people work from early age to study, to work, to buy food, buy shelter. You have created a homelessness crisis that you're not going to get away with it because you continue to feed a society that depends, it's addicted on free rent, free roof, free medical, and even free medical legal advice. If you're going to change the homelessness crisis, you need to change your attitude and your way of thinking about it. And you're not going to do it by feeding a society that needs to be food, house, and everything else. Change it. If you want a homelessness crisis resolved, you need to change 40 years of disgrace and failed policies. No on 15.
Good. Gerard Wright with the Greater Los Angeles Realtors. For the housing providers in the room, could you please stand quietly with your signs, please? If you could do that. The timing of this motion couldn't, the proposed motion couldn't be worse, not just as members have already mentioned regarding the COVID, they having PTSD from the COVID pandemic in terms of the lost rents and other opportunities. What this is also going to do is put in jeopardy important programs that the mayor is implementing. For example, housing for vets. These are the same housing providers that would like to house veterans, but a policy like this will deter them from doing that because they don't feel much confidence that the city council is going to follow through on said rules and said orders. The other component to this is the methodology that some of the tenant advocates have used in the study. These include that the price gouging locations are more than 2/3 in the luxury rental markets. These are up in Brentwood, Hollywood Hills, Venice, the canals of Venice, Palisades. These are areas that are normally above market rate anyways. So this is, the logic is very faulty. Most importantly, with respect to the increase for housing providers to maintain the property, but also maintain themselves as small business owners. Utilities have gone up, which you guys have a direct impact with DWP. Trash fees have gone up, same thing. This is just going to create bad policy left and right here. And I would urge that there was a particular proposal back in 2022 called Measure ULA that the same tenant advocates have used and said, hey, there's an opportunity to fund to help people in need of this. Why aren't we looking into that? Because that was basically what the voters asked for. Why isn't this concluded in the conversation? Because it's more assistance that's needed, not a blanket policy that's going to be detrimental to not just tenants, but also housing providers. Thank you so very much for your time and attention. I'll close with this. The gadflies that are coming up here right now, they need to learn from John Walsh. I long for those days.
Speaker,
Thank you.
Your time has expired. Next speaker.
Good morning. This is my first time doing this. My name is Eric Maman, and it's an honor to speak before this body. I'm not here on behalf of any landlord organization or tenant organization. I'm just here to give you the perspective of a small mom and pop landlord who happens to own a couple of small rental properties in the city of Los Angeles. And I'm here today to urge you to not institute another citywide eviction moratorium that's based merely on the non-payment of rent. When I heard that after the fire, the city was going to prohibit evictions that are based on taking in folks who've lost their homes, I thought that was a great idea, and I applaud anyone who is taking in those people who've been displaced. But when I heard that the city was considering a new blanket moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent for anybody in the city of Los Angeles who signs a piece of paper claiming hardship from the fires, I was floored. I just think it's an insane overreach which would result in severe hardship for thousands of small landlords like myself who rely on those rent checks every month to pay our bills, including our skyrocketing insurance premiums. This is not COVID, which impacted our entire society. This was a fire that devastated a particular part of our city for sure, and the city should be tailoring its efforts to address the displacement that has occurred and not using this as a reason to allow tenants citywide who still have their apartments to stop paying rent. And yes, I realize there are a handful of folks who worked up in the Palisades and others who are experiencing financial hardship. But a citywide eviction moratorium is a drastically disproportionate and poorly tailored response to the scope of that problem. And experience tells us there will be abuse by some, not by all and not even by most, but for a small landlord, even one tenant not paying rent with no ability to evict can be an extreme hardship. It's just poor public policy, and whatever other measures you do here today, I beg of you, please do not do another blanket citywide moratorium. Thank you.
My name is Faiza Malik, and I'm a managing attorney at Public Counsel. I'm also a CD11 tenant and know many families who lost homes in the Palisades fire in our district. Legal aid organizations like Public Counsel are intaking numerous tenant issues across the city and county at disaster recovery centers right now. Tenants who have lost their jobs because the fires now can't pay rent and access emergency relief, tenants getting notices of landlords not wanting to renew their leases, numerous stories of owner move-in evictions, a 32-year Larso tenancy in Echo Park is being evicted to move in the landlord's daughter who lost their home in the fires, landlords trying to get around rent gouging laws, landlords refusing to make repairs. None of these issues are addressed by the council motion to protect tenants taking in occupants and pets. And hundreds of thousands of tenants in the city are about to get a 4 to 6% rent increase in February because the city failed to update the RSO formula last year. We can't afford more strain on our already strained housing stock. Our system is already strained. We need to learn lessons from other disasters, evictions, and rent increased after the tragic fires in Maui, and we can't let that happen here in LA. We need stronger tenant protections, and we need to build more affordable housing. Projects like the approved Venice Dell project, which Councilmember Park unfortunately opposes. I want to read this comment from a CD11 tenant facing eviction who reached out to me but couldn't get off work today to be here. My name is Erin McDonough. I've lived in a rent-stabilized unit in Brentwood for 8 years and love this community and my district. In the aftermath of the fires, I'm facing an owner move-in eviction. I know neighbors who are also facing similar situations as a ripple effect of the devastating impact of the fires. I fully support measures that can help renters, particularly those in rent-stabilized housing in these difficult times. And I'll just add that Erin also told me that lots of people who lost their homes in the Palisades are now trying to move into rentals in Brentwood and are pushing down on the rental market there, and a lot of landlords are trying to increase the rents. And so it's not just, it's tenants all over the city, but I also want to highlight that it's CD11 tenants who are facing this right now. Thank you.
Hoy estoy aquí a favor del punto 15.
I am here today in favor of number 15.
Y de que haya más protecciones para los inquilinos.
And in support of more protections for renters.
Yo soy una madre indígena y yo quiero decirles a los que han dicho que no trabajamos que he trabajado en costura.
I am an indigenous mother, and I want to say to the people who say that we don't work, that I've worked
Yo sé
sewing.
que muchos que están aquí están a favor del capitalismo.
I know that a lot of people who are here are in favor of capitalism.
Muchos no van a votar apoyando el punto 15.
A lot of them are not going to vote in favor of number 15.
Aquí tengo las pruebas de cómo Asociación de Apartamentos y la industria de edificios paga campañas políticas para que voten a favor de ellos y se hagan más ricos.
Here I have proof of how the Apartment Owners Association and the building industry pays political campaigns so that they can make more money.
La vida está así, aquí está el capitalismo.
And we can see here's capitalism.
Ya tenemos a Donald Trump.
We already have Donald Trump.
Aquí tenemos a la gente obrera
And here we have the laborers
que lucha cada día por salir adelante.
that fights day to day to make ends meet.
Hoy están pasando por falta de trabajo, por enfermedades.
Now, because of the lack of work, they are getting sick.
Y lo peor que están viviendo ahorita son las redadas.
And the worst that they're living through is all these different webs.
Estando en la junta, compadres, están pensando que no van a tener para pagar sus rentas porque han perdido sus trabajos.
Parents are thinking that they're not going to be able to pay their rent because they've lost their jobs.
Y muchos de aquí que están de asociación de apartamentos, no me digan que no es un negocio bienes raíces.
And those of you who are here from the apartment association, don't come here and tell me that it's not a real estate agency business.
Claro que están ganando mucho, por eso están invirtiendo.
Of course you're making a lot of money. That is why you're investing.
Pueden investigar en los edificios que se parecen egipcios en el centro de Los Ángeles. 70% están vacíos.
You can go look at the different apartment buildings, the one that look empty. 70% of them are empty.
Llevamos un año viniendo para que pasen Tajo.
We have been waiting 1 year for them to pass Tahoe.
Si tuvieran protecciones para los inquilinos y pasaran Tajo,
if we had protections for renters and they passed Tahoe,
muchos de esos apartamentos que están en el centro del capitalismo pudieran dar hogares a muchos homeless.
lots of those buildings that are in the center of capitalism would have been able to provide homes for a lot of the homeless people.
Ustedes como políticos tienen la responsabilidad de proteger a las comunidades pobres, a las comunidades.
You guys as politicians have the responsibility to protect poor communities.
A las comunidades que hacen grandes
your time has
Los
expired.
Ángeles, la segunda economía más
The community that makes Los Angeles great, the second largest economy.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I'm a resident of Council District 3. Our landlord started a no-fault eviction on my family, and I am here for you to vote yes on eviction moratorium. Our first email was received coincidentally the day of the fires. Even if we give him the benefit of the doubt, he followed up with a second email on January 8th. This is 3 weeks after I had cervical disc replacement and physically can't move. He asked us to be out by the end of the month, which is ridiculous and not even, 60-day minimum, I believe, is no fault. He followed that up again on the 13th with a termination letter, and again on the 18th, which he mailed from Miami. There are no homes in our area to rent. Everything has gone up over 200%. There's no place for my family to go. And as scary and tenuous as my family situation is, I know that so many families have it even worse. I'm blessed to have the opportunity to advocate for myself, my family, and my community. Not everybody has these same privileges. Thank you.
I think you spoke beautifully, Jess. There were a number of people who spoke quite eloquently and articulately and got into some of the economic realities that we face as housing providers. Initially, that's the direction that I was going to go, but it doesn't seem like it's necessary because everybody's done such a great job in explaining that reality. We're here because of a state of emergency. There are people that lost their homes. This is a tragic, tragic situation, clearly. But this motion, as proposed by Mr. Soto-Martinez, is way overreaching and ultimately does not reach or bring the intended goal to task. Unfortunately, members of this council, certain members of this council, have a bigger agenda, a different agenda, something beyond just helping the people of the city get through these tragedies. They are looking at an opportunity.
General public comment.
General comment. They're taking an opportunity here to advance that agenda on the coattails of this horrible tragedy and emergency. I want to remind everyone that there are landlords who will be guilty of price gouging, and there are things that are implemented that are here in place to protect tenants from that. But equally, there are many tenants that are being opportunistic, and we need to protect all of the constituents in your districts, not just the selected few. And landlords, Mr. Soto-Martinez, I know this is a passion project for yours. I went down the rabbit hole as a member of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. Clearly, you have a different view and a different agenda. This is not the time for that. The same with Ms. Rahman, the same with Gerardo, and the other members of the Democratic Socialists. I applaud the common sense members, Mr. McCosker, Lee, Park, who are actually considering what's being said here today and the impacts that this will have on the people that are providing the housing in this community that is so desperately needed. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mahogany Rhodes, and I'm a proud realtor that assists individuals that want to become housing providers, But most importantly, I stand before you as a second-generation housing provider. And I don't know when the narrative got twisted that landlords are rich, but my parents purchased their properties on a Head Start salary and a union salary. Now, if you've heard the rumors about people who lost insurance, one of my properties is that. The other property is underinsured because we're too afraid of what will happen above the 40%. So when you're considering people, tenants, you need to consider also the other side of this. Private landowners make up maybe just 50%, but you are suggesting with item 15, giving a blanket answer to a problem that's on another side of town. Because what I will tell you is that at no point did I or anyone I know that provides housing walk up to somebody's door and say, let me raise the rent. These people are already in place, and we understand. Now, here's what I would like those who are using common sense and helping all of the citizens, those who provide housing and those who need it. You have to consider that only an individual like my parents can look at an individual like my tenant who had trouble paying her rent, and I was able to offer, listen, let's work out a payment plan. Let's work out a way that you can do it. But if you keep straddling us with only the ability to only have maybe 4% as a rental increase, but our costs are going up 40, 50, 60, 70%, then you're going to leave yourself with the big boys who are the ones who have the resources and have the money. I urge you to use common sense in this, come up with a better approach, and stop putting the back of handling the housing crisis on individuals. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Which items would you like to speak to?
Good morning, everybody here. My name is Ruth, and my English is a little bit poor, but I can speak. My name is Ruth, and I would like to bring the issues that I have been and my landlord to start the rent increase. She increased the rent every year for the pandemic. 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And most recently, she increased again in August, January this year. She increased the rent by 8.8%. Also, each time, even though she does not pay utilities, we pay the utilities, gas and electrical power service. I pay the electrical gas all the time. I pay, and I have a, I pay electrical, multiple issues. We have issues that plumbing and leak from the neighbors. Up there, pipe enter our bathroom wall. We have answers. We don't have an answer from her. Come out that the kitchen leak to the other bathroom, and anywhere. I have a lot of problems in the apartment. So what I like to bring over here is that the city try to help us in the rent control to not increase the rent from 0 to 3%. My heart is very sore. I am a single mother, and I cannot afford to pay too much. It's the one what I want to
Speaker,
increase
your time has
it, the
expired.
3.5 what the regular the city does.
Speaker, we have to move on to the next speaker.
Good morning, City Council members.
Good morning.
I wonder if all the housing providers like
Speaker,
me
which
could stand
items-
up. and
Speaker,
show
which
you
items would you like
who
to
we
speak to?
are. We provide the housing for the tenants in Los Angeles, not the government. We do. We're the people who get the bills. We're the ones who get the increases. We get the gas company, Department of Water and Power, the trash collection companies. We get those increases. We just got an increase from the LA Housing Department, $31 a tenant in non-rent housing. How is that fair? I just paid $3,600 for a new air conditioner in one apartment. What that tells me, if I can't have a rent increase, I'm going to have to, the next person who wants it is going to get a cheaper unit or just a repair of the older unit. Just please remember that we just got through with COVID. We went 3 years with no increase. Now you're giving us another freeze or you're considering it. Please do not do that. If you do it, that item 15 will break the backs of us, of the housing providers of LA. Thank you.
I'm a member of Councilman Lee's district, and I just want to comment that we already have numerous laws on the books. Rent control, rent increase limits, anti-gouging laws. We have a number of consumer protections, anti-discrimination and civil rights departments. All of those things are available for tenants, and they protect tenants. But to layer on new, poorly thought out restrictions with not a single hurdle to ensure that you are helping the actual people that need the help is the literal definition of government overreach. You are no worse than the unscrupulous people who actually gouge because you're going far over and above and penalizing law-abiding landlords that try to provide housing to this community. And I also want to say many landlords in Los Angeles are small investors who pool money. You heard from many of them here, and they're struggling. You are not penalizing BlackRock and Goldman. They don't give a shit.
General public comment.
Thank you. You're not hurting them. You're hurting your own citizens who try to provide housing at a fair price, under rent control and rent stabilized units, and at market rate. That's the job. That's what we do. And to limit a $40 increase on rent control for an apartment, I know that's a lot of money to some people. But the combined effect of that and the lack of protections you've had in the COVID era and now trying to extend to this, it's absolutely insane. You're creating just a runaway, honestly, you want free housing and no evictions. That's a laudable goal, but you're doing it on the backs of hardworking people that put their college fund money, their kids' money into housing to try to provide a service to this city. And to compare this to Maui, is insane. It's like 0.6% of the houses in Los Angeles were destroyed. Not even. Thank you.
For us housing providers, landlords, whatever you want to call us, the main reason I think we're here is not the fires. It's basically it goes to the ineptitude of your predecessors and the mayors failing to provide enough housing for this city. That's why we're here. I'm not here to argue the financial aspect of what's going on because it's been argued ad nauseum. What I think a lot of people are missing is every time you pass more restrictions on us mom and pop landlords, you are driving a wedge between us and our tenants. The majority of my properties are in South Central Los Angeles. It's a tough part of town. Over the years, I've been able to go to my buildings and I'm high-fiving the kids. They all love, hey, Chris, good to see you. How you doing? When a tenant of mine's brother was shot and killed, I'm the mom and pop landlord that went down to the South LA, went to the supermarket, and spent $150 of my own dollars to buy groceries and support her family while they were going through this tough time. But when you guys continually put more and more restrictions on us by not letting us raise rents, not letting us evict people, not letting us charge for extra tenants who pile up the trash more and more, I used to have an expression with my tenants. My tenants would say, Chris, I need an extra 2 weeks to pay the rent because my car broke down. Word for word, I would say to them, pay when you can because your success is my success. I'm a small mom and pop landlord. I just wanted to run my business according to the rules that existed when I bought my business. You've grossly changed the rules of how we run our business. So now I no longer say your success is my success because your rent is 50% or less than market rent. So your success is my failure now, thanks to what you people have done. I don't want it that way. We don't want tenants to move out. We want tenants to stay. We want tenants to pay the rent. But when tenants' rent is so far below market, we now have to adopt the attitude of, your success is my failure because now I want you to move out. I like you as a person. I'm sorry I do, but I can't be emotionally attached to you anymore because I need to drop the hammer when I have to. And every time you pass more and more stuff like this, you drive the wedge further in between landlords and our tenants. We don't want that. We really don't.
Yeah, good afternoon, council members, and thank you for the time. I've never been to one of these, but I felt compelled as a small building owner to show up today because after the last 4 years that we've gone through, as small landlords, I cannot even imagine what another year of this would look like. I'll try not to repeat what's been said and said very eloquently before me. My insurance has at a minimum doubled, in some cases tripled. My DWP bill has gone up 40%, and just the service call that used to cost me $180 costs $320. My wife often asks me, why did we buy these buildings? And I used to have an answer. I don't have very good answers to give her anymore. And she asked me then, like, would you buy them again? And I have to really pause and think. I'm not Blackstone. I'm a local apartment owner, and I broker apartment buildings as well. So this is my industry. I care very much about it. I own 2 units up to 8 units.
General public comment?
Yeah, again, I'm not Blackstone. I'm not equity residential. But when policies like this make it next to impossible to cover costs, and buildings start to deteriorate, repairs get delayed and pushed back, and ultimately the housing situation gets worse for everyone. If this city is serious about affordability, let's focus on solutions that help increase supply and help housing providers keep more supply on the market. Not policies like this. It just pushes us out. And because when small landlords are gone, then all you're dealing with is the Blackstones and equity residentials and all the people that you say you don't want, that you say you're trying to fight. So thank you.
So just like the gentleman, a few speakers before me, this is my first time attending one of these, and I gotta tell you, you got a lot of people in this room, regardless on what side of this issue that they're speaking on, who've taken time out of their day to come down and speak on something that's important to them. And I am shocked to see how many empty chairs there are. And I am shocked to see this group over here who's been yucking it up the entire time, and this group over here as well. I respectfully ask that everybody on this side actually pay attention to what is being said in this room, because people care about this issue, number one. Number two, I represent a landlord in downtown LA. And I gotta tell you, all these comments about, landlords are rich, they make a lot of money, you only protect developers, etc. Who do you think supplies housing to people in Los Angeles? Landlords do. City officials do not, landlords do. Asking landlords to take another year, 2, 3 years of tenants not having to pay rent, because that's exactly what's about to happen if you pass this. For 4 years, landlords have carried the burden of COVID. For 4 years, landlords have carried the burden of tenants taking advantage of emergencies, etc. For 4 years, landlords have carried Los Angeles housing to make sure that people had a place to live. Landlords can no longer continue to afford donating housing and tenants taking advantage of the fact that these are in place. Thank you.
Three is the number of weeks my family was given to pack up all of our belongings and move out of the home we have lived in for less than a year. 2 represents the 2 times higher homelessness rates in cities with home values above the national average like Los Angeles. 1 is the number of paychecks most Americans are away from homelessness. Good afternoon. My name is Eliana Levine. I'm 16 years old and a resident of District 3. I come before you today to plead for your support on behalf of my own family and all of the families across our city who are living under the constant threat of eviction in the wake of the devastating fires. On December 20th, my mom had cervical disc replacement surgery on 2 discs with an expected recovery period of around 4 to 6 months. Not even 2.5 weeks later, our landlord emailed us an eviction notice, granting us only 3 weeks to relocate without any legally binding reason. Renters within the state of California cannot legally be given less than 60 days notice. That day was January 7th. At the same time, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire took place, eventually destroying over 10,000 homes.
General public comment?
That same day, we responded, explaining how it was impossible for us to relocate within that time. The next day, our landlord responded, granting us until March 1st to relocate, requesting nearly full rent with only a slight deduction for relocation. After only 3 weeks of recovery, my mom returned to work. She cannot afford to take more time off. Not everyone has the same privilege as I do to use their voice to advocate for themselves, but they do have you to act on their behalf, to help them keep a roof over their heads. 3 represents the 3 in every 5 people of Gen Z who live not only in rental homes, but in a rent burdensome situation, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing alone. 2 represents the 200% that rent soared in parts of Los Angeles since the fires, despite anti-gouging protections. 1 represents the opportunity that each one of you on the council has to vote yes to protect my family and the families across Los Angeles. I urge you to pass the moratorium as it was originally written. Thank you.
I come here disinvested from either side. I don't own apartments anymore, and I am not a renter in Los Angeles. I'm here speaking for the owners, the apartment building owners that I speak to every day who own RSL units in Los Angeles and who've been quagmired by rent increases, eviction moratoriums over the past 4 years. While they have seen their property taxes rise, they have seen their insurance rates triple, they have seen their power and water costs double, and they've seen their trash costs rise as well. I think the big disconnect between our council members and some of the tenants' rights groups fail to understand is that many of the housing providers look like them. Many of them may be their family members as well. They can be aunts and uncles or cousins of them as well, and they traditionally don't share that they're landlords for this very reason, that they operate in an environment where they are shared as unpopular.
General public comment?
General public comment. So the second thing that I'd like to say is that most of the times this framing of corporate apartmentship ownership is false. The BlackRock and Blackstones don't own in Los Angeles anymore, and the ones that do are divesting from Los Angeles. As a result, the largest apartment conference in America is right now happening in Vegas. And when you talk to those guys, they are happy that they don't own in Los Angeles anymore. You talk to them, they sound like they just missed cancer because RSO has destroyed their abilities to provide housing for people in Los Angeles. And so when you strip owners of all of their rights, there will not be the BlackRock and the Blackstones here to bail out the existing owners. There will be operators who are far less kind. And if you need an example of what will happen in Los Angeles, just look at New York. New York is the only city in America that has more restrictive restrictions than Los Angeles. And in 2019, they passed what was tantamount to Proposition 33. And as a result, their apartment market has crashed.
Speaker, your time has expired. Next speaker. Good afternoon. Which items would you like to speak to?
15.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for
General Dogon here, shut it down organized on Skid Row with LA Can. And I'm here with other members of our Human and Civil Rights Committee, and we're here to encourage this committee to vote yes on 15. Right? Well, you know it's long and come. We shouldn't even have to come and tell y'all that something that automatically should be done. And not only should we get that rent freeze, we should get a rent rebate. We should get some of our money back from all these things. Thank you for that.
I am a housing provider and developer in the city of Los Angeles, and there is a false narrative that is being perpetrated that the fires have triggered bidding wars and skyrocketing rents across Los Angeles. This is simply not happening in the majority of the market. In fact, the market is soft There are no bidding wars, and rents under $6,000 have not increased or significantly increased since the fire. I have a brand new 4-bedroom, 3-bath in prime North Hollywood, yet I am seeing little demand. I actively track my competition, and out of 10 similarly priced new 4-bedroom units in the area, only one rented last week. Only one. Where is the bidding wars? Where is the rapid rent increases? It's a false narrative. I have and I track my competition. You know, out of 7 of these single units, you know how many rented last week? 0. Zip. Crickets. It's a false narrative. Let me say this. There is a fund, there is FEMA. The Supreme Court has already spoken. No man can be his own judge. The eviction moratorium must be limited to those really impacted by the fire, and they must be able to prove if challenged. The world, the country of builders and developers are watching you. And if you act capriciously, we will not build anymore. You will not get the new housing you want. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Nathan Gordon. I'm a tenants' rights attorney. I would like to comment that these landlords here most of them are represented. They're represented in the courts. They're represented here. They fill up all the seats. There's a line out the door of tenants who can't even get in here to voice their concerns. Is that fair? Is that representation? Is that any form of a democracy? Make these proceedings fair for everyone, not just these landlords back here, but the row of tenants that are sitting out right now in the freezing cold who can't even get into this building. I urge the council members to vote yes for this motion as it is written and make these proceedings fair for everyone. Don't let these landlords sit here and occupy the seats such that tenants are sitting outside and can't even exercise their rights to comment before this council. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Which items would you like to speak to?
All items and general public comment. There, I just did your job for you, Bob.
Appreciate that. So you have 3 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general. Can we start as time from the top? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have item 13, which is appointing the chief legislative analyst to the debris removal task force. This is Sharon So, who served briefly as caretaker for CD6. So I wonder what she considers to be debris when talking about this, because she did a whole lot of, encampment sweeps when she wasn't even, elected council member for the district or even appointed council member for the district. So maybe pointing Sharon So to things is not the greatest idea. All right, we have item 14, that's supplemental charter bus services in CD10. Again, these are really unspecified charter bus services. So where are the buses going? Where the that's a good question. So yeah, then turn your back to me. So we have item 15, which is this is a common sense measure to give people affected by the fires some protections. This should be non-controversial. This is just basic, we have people who have lost their jobs, who are lost everything pretty much, as these fires have devastated the city. This should be completely non-controversial that we should give these people some aid for the next few months so that they can stay in their homes at least while these fires have devastated the city. This should be non-controversial, but apparently there are some landlords who can't handle their tenants getting some protection during this immense crisis. It's really just says a lot that there's anyone who would oppose giving aid to people affected by the fire.
You're welcome to continue this during general, but I'm going to ask that you move on to another item for now.
I did not speak for a minute on that, but let's go to general public comment. So I see Traci left the room. She didn't want to hear about her little thing that she did a few weeks ago when she was meeting with Trump. She's, they're coddling Trump, a fascist, praising him for, like all she needed to do was just ask for the aid, ask for it without all these restrictions that Trump has been asking to be put in there for federal aid. Just ask for the aid and move on with your day. You don't need to thank him for supporting the cops or whatever. His little minions that he's going to send in to, enforce his taking away all rights from trans people, mass deportations, all these stuff that he's doing that none of you have had anything to say on here at all. Other than Hugo, he posted like a Know Your Rights thing. And restore call and comment.
When we as a city tell developers and property owners that at any moment the Los Angeles City Council can commandeer your investment, who is going to want to build in this city? Who is going to want to do business here? If we truly want to help those directly impacted by the fires and have been displaced, then let's focus on doing that in a way that doesn't harm housing providers and discourage investment in the very housing our city desperately needs. Why is it every time we as a city are facing any kind of problem, we pass it on and say, you know what, it's not our job to do as a city council. You know what, you take care of the problem. As a city, we have the resources and the means to help the people that are affected, the people that are falling through the cracks. We have the ability to help those people. If your concern are for those people who are not eligible for the numerous resources, there are various programs available to assist them. Not long ago, this very council passed some of the strongest tenant protections in the city's history. Are we now suggesting that those protections are somehow just not effective enough? If we truly believe those protections made a difference, we shouldn't need an eviction moratorium.
And so my constituents have to pay the rent in 3 days. That's what they're dealing with. They have to pay the rent in 3 days. And as a city of Los Angeles, we have to say something to support those people. And I think we can all agree on that. And so, and the other comments were made about, well, what if a factory closes down? No one's talking about one factory closing down. We're talking about the city of Los Angeles facing one of the largest natural disasters in the last 40 years. That we're talking about a scale that is affecting a ton of people. And so I think we have to act with a certain level of urgency and say this is the right thing. And the last thing I would say is I am personally very bothered by this sort of small landlord, corporate landlord division. I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of small landlords. Many of you are here today. Smaller landlords, mom and pops, have more sympathy. They have more compassion. They rent to people that they know. The referrals come from friends. They build relationships with those folks. I have no doubt, and I've heard the stories, I have no doubt that many of you will act with compassion and sympathy for someone who was economically affected by the fire and say, you know what, I'll have a little forgiveness. But who is not going to forgive is those corporate landlords that are owned by BlackRock and Berkshire Hathaway. They will have no sympathy. They will spit out a letter, and that person will be immediately in eviction court. So we have to look out for the people that are the most vulnerable here in the city of Los Angeles, which is why we put forward this policy. So I know the discussion is happening, but I just want to sort of center the decision that we're making today, because I think most people could agree it's the right thing to do in this moment. Thank you.
We cannot keep putting the city's problems on the backs of our housing providers who are still suffering from the devastating effects of the rent freezes and blanket eviction protections with no documentation from the COVID era. But even so, as a body, we've already taken very real and substantial steps to protect displaced and economically impacted renters. Just this morning, the city attorney uploaded the ordinance that I requested prohibiting evictions in households that have taken on unauthorized pets or individuals displaced by the fires. That protection, real protection, is already going to remain in effect for a year. And those are in addition to the sweeping and strong renter protections passed by this council over the last 2 years. Rent stabilization, just cause eviction protections, protections for non-payment of rent as a result of an economic disruption like the ones these fires caused. And we just approved a new fee structure that will help our housing department hire staff they need to protect tenants and enforce the rules. And I'll add a final note that the only communications we've received about this motion aren't from workers in my district who have lost their jobs, but individuals who just want to see their 4% RSO increase frozen starting February 1st until the city considers a new RSO formula, an entirely separate policy issue that has been pending in committee for nearly 3 months. The RSO formula and what it should be and whether it should change is an important policy conversation, and that's why it needs to be fully vetted and discussed in committee before coming to this floor, which I look forward to. So if this motion is really about freezing the next RSO rent increase rather than protecting a small universe of workers, then I can't support the policy or derivative uses that is using a disaster in my district as a pretext for some other political agenda. That's not right.
Councilmember Hernandez.
I take great offense to what was just said by Councilmember Park, because my heart aches for the loss that happened in Palisade, both the lives and the property. And when the motions came out to support your region, no question, threw down and supported what you put forth. Why? Because I understood the urgency. I have people in my district who are the gardeners, the nannies, the housekeepers, who are undocumented, who've lost everything, who can't just walk into a restaurant and get another job. And so yes, the crisis is in your district, but it reverberates across the 15 districts of the city. So it is not a political agenda. I'm talking about people. I'm talking about the people that are sitting right there. The moms, the dads, the parents that are gonna lose everything too. So I just have to be very clear with that, because the intention is not to put one community or one group over another. We understand that they're small mom and pop landlords. Let's support them. Tell us what you need, but don't tell us, no, don't help this other group of people. Tell us what you need. We're here. We're the government. We're supposed to be helping you, small mom and pop landlords and tenants. No one wants to see more corporations take over our small mom and pop landlords. Nobody on this council. Let's just be very clear with that. But we don't have to put one group over another. So tell us, small mom and pop landlords, what do you need? What do you need to survive this crisis? And we will work on that. But it shouldn't come at the cost of some of our most vulnerable community members. So let's do both. Let's do both. That's all I'm saying. Let's do both. Let's do both. We can do both.
I'll ask the gentleman in the black hat and green shirt. You all spoke. People didn't interrupt you when you were speaking. Councilmember Hernandez.
Both. Thank you, Council President. We can do both. This was waived out of committee because of the urgency of this disaster, which is why we're here today. We're already seeing rent hikes across the city. Every time there was a fire in this state and in Hawaii, we saw the rent gouging that went up. We saw the evictions. The data's there. It's going to happen here. As my colleague shared, I am too hearing story after story from constituents in my district who lost their jobs overnight. I understand that there's a process, but we are in crises. And last council meeting, we're here. The first one we came back from the fires, 23 motions were Rule 23. 23 of them. So don't talk to me about process when we did this in the last council meeting. Because when it's for one community, we're willing to do everything we can. But when it's for another community, we keep putting barriers to help them. And that's ridiculous. We introduced this motion 3 weeks ago. The reason that it wasn't heard that day it was because we were asked to work with the housing department to determine a process which we have done, and it's on the council file. Today, we talked with a lot of you. Even though our teams have been in conversation for a couple weeks now, We just started seeing language for amendments just today, when our teams have been in conversation for weeks about it. And I'm down to keep working with y'all together. I'm down to keep doing the work to move this forward because of how crucial it is. And it feels like the goalposts just keep moving again and again and again, and we're being asked to send this back to committee. Every day we wait on this is a day closer to eviction for vulnerable tenants. This is going to increase the eviction to homelessness pipeline. And I'm not trying to say, I told you so, but evictions are going to increase. And when that happens, I will tell you I told you so. Because my district is already experiencing 1,000 evictions every month. And this was before the fires. My people are the gardeners. My people are the nannies. My people are the poor people who work and maintain places like the Palisades. And that's why I'm fighting so hard. Because we cannot afford to lose more of these community members. And we've accepted the amendments. We've worked with the amendments because we understand it has to be palatable for everybody. But we have to try to fight for all our folks. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Whatever the will of the body is today, we will do the work. We've always been willing to do the work as a body, and I don't think there's a single person around this horseshoe who doesn't want to do the work to help impacted residents, and to suggest otherwise is, I think, unnecessary at this time, really unnecessary. We may disagree on policy, but we all want the same thing, the best for our city. And I hope that we can have a civil and productive conversation on how to get there. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee. Being a member of this body does not give you the ability to stand up and just straight lie to people. So, it was earlier said that some of us had not understood this motion and said that this doesn't affect, it was very specifically tailored, it's not citywide. I don't want to pick this apart piece by piece about the vagueness of some of these requests, but item number 3 says, request the city attorney to draft an emergency ordinance implementing a rent increase pause for all residential units through January 31st, 2026. You cannot tell me that that is tailored specific to help the people affected in this fire. It would also make the argument that we don't want corporations. We don't want more corporations. We want to help the mom and pops. Well, our very actions in this council, by keeping the eviction moratorium through COVID past, I don't even know how long. Originally, I think it was for 3 months and then went on for 2 or 3 years. Those actions that we took brought up corporate ownership because the mom and pops could not take the gamble to ever be faced with that problem again. So if we don't want corporate ownership, let's not push them to the point. Being a landlord doesn't mean you are shielded somehow from economic hardship. It doesn't mean that, yes, everybody, probably, I know everyone in this horseshoe, I know every one of the employees. I'm willing to guess that everyone in the audience wants to help the people affected by this fire. But just simply saying, hey, you know what, just, you got to help out people. Like, people have real responsibilities. My fear of this passing through, the biggest fear I had was if people affected by the fire, no matter what amendments we put towards it, that there were going to be some landlords who understood the financial risks and would not rent. If they asked questions and found out you were affected by the fires, that they would not rent to the people who have been affected by the fires, knowing that they could simply, in the next month, say, you know what, I can't pay this rent. We have things in place. We've put things in place. We're talking about a new ULA. Councilmember Park talked about different programs. Councilmember Park and I are working with organizations to give direct checks to people that need this help in the amount of, last time I checked, Councilmember Park, $10 million out of just personal giving, because we're doing the work to try to help those people. We don't think provincially in times like this. We think as one city. We think as one city. The Palisades, while it's in Councilmember Park's district, it affects all of us as a city of Los Angeles. And we got to remember when we put legislation through that we have to think about everybody. So this body, it keeps being said over and over that, well, it was Rule 23, and we wanted a Rule 23. Well, it didn't have the findings to have a Rule 23. Not everything just gets granted a Rule 23 to hear it that day. Why didn't it get granted? Because this has large, huge implications that could affect broadly above the emergency that we had at hand. It needed to be heard in committee. It was waived out of committee, and instead we are running around here. You see me going around, talking to council members, other council members, talking to other people, everyone putting amendments together. This is exactly the work that we should have in committee. And why I just think that everyone sitting out there, they have no idea what we are talking about. And I get it. I'm not saying we don't make tweaks, we don't change things, but this is an important citywide issue. So I hope that this is a lesson that we learn, that when it comes to broad-ranging things like this, that we do the work. Councilmember Roman says we all want to do the work. Then let's do the work as a city to make sure that we're crafting policy that doesn't hurt the very people we say we are trying to help.
Councilmember Padilla.
Just feel the need to speak a second time because I follow the sentiments of the importance to take this to committee because it was too broad. But I also want to clarify that just because I thought this was too broad doesn't make me anti-helping those that were affected by the fires. It reminds me of when the silicosis crisis happened. As soon as silicosis crisis happened, I went straight to the workers and I went straight to the environmental justice organizations before it became the thing that everybody on council was talking about. Same with this. When workers in my district were being affected, the first thing that I did was move my discretionary funding to the most trusted economic development organization in my district to get the ball rolling, to get people that direct services that they need. So I just wanted to make sure that I said, just because I support the notion that we follow process to really unpackage things, especially as it pertains to this. It doesn't make me anti-worker. It doesn't make me anti-gardener, nannies, or any of that thing. But I also get an equal amount of stories from the people that play by the rules to make sure that they pay rent on time, work hard to collect all of the pieces to make sure that they don't get evicted. They're affected by schemers. And when we create these sort of blanket sort of policies in the name of an emergency, what you do is also open up a Pandora's box for those that look for loopholes to get away with not having to play by the rules. And that's what really bothers me. If we want to help the people directly affected, let's do things to help them directly, as opposed to blanket things. But I gotta admit, I haven't been a fan of the process, but this running around today, it really looks like some of you really worked hard to try to reach a compromise, but it should not have been done here in council.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments being made around, the waiving of the item. But let's be honest with ourselves, everybody in this room right now. There's only 5 people that sit on that committee. The notion that there would not be amendments on the floor is preposterous. It would have happened. So please, let's all be honest with ourselves. I think if we're going to talk about honesty, let's all talk about the honesty. And I want to uplift something Councilmember Padilla said around the running around and doing the work to get to where we need to get to. That's democracy. The fact that we were all running around trying to figure out, what do you need? What do you need? How can we all work together to find a middle ground to protect everybody? That's what was happening, and it would have happened regardless because there's only 5 people on that committee. So please, let's be honest with ourselves. And also, to some of the comments around Councilmember Lee around honesty, there are amendments going around that take this from being blanket, as people have said, to very refined, so that we know the people that we're talking about and the processes. Might not be as refined, let's talk about it, But we have begun to refine that process because we hear you. We hear you that it's too broad. And those amendments are coming, and if they're not in front of you, they should be coming. But I did want to uplift that's a lot of the work of the running around that was happening, and it was going to happen anyways.